Did the IRS actually confirm that $1,390 stimulus checks, specifically for low-income Americans, are set to be distributed by the end of summer? That's the question that has been floating around everywhere lately, in comments, in emails, in social media posts, and in viral articles that look convincing at first glance. And that's the question I want to take head on here, because the truth is very different from the rumor, and sometimes the hardest thing to do is tell people what they don't want to hear but absolutely need to know. Over the last several days, I've been asked about this again and again. People want to know if the IRS has confirmed it, if the money is already budgeted, if they should be watching their bank accounts in the next few weeks for a direct deposit. I understand why these questions are asked. For anyone living on a tight budget, any promise of relief feels like a lifeline. A payment of almost $1,400 could mean catching up on overdue bills, filling the fridge, paying off a utility, or finally getting ahead, even if just a little bit. The idea that this help might be right around the corner is powerful. That's exactly why articles and posts with headlines about a $1,390 stimulus payment spread like wildfire. They speak directly to people's hopes, and hopes spread quickly. But here is the simple, honest truth: there is no such confirmed payment. The IRS has not announced it, Congress has not approved it, and the President has not signed anything that would make such a payment real. As much as I wish I could sit here and tell you that money is already scheduled to arrive, that is not the case. And I know that saying this out loud will make some people upset, because nobody wants to hear bad news, especially when it cancels out something they've been holding on to. But reality matters. It matters more than rumors, more than viral posts, and more than click-driven websites that rely on exaggeration. Let's slow this down and really look at what's going on. Where did the number 1,390 even come from? It sounds oddly specific, doesn't it? That's part of why it feels so believable. If someone wrote around $1,400, it would look vague and suspicious. But 1,390 sounds like the kind of number that must have come from a spreadsheet in Washington, some hidden line item in a budget. That false sense of precision tricks the brain into lowering its guard. The truth is, there is no government program with that figure attached. It's a manufactured number, designed to look convincing. Now, to be clear, this isn't the first time Americans have received direct payments from the government. Everyone remembers the stimulus checks during the pandemic years. In record time, Congress passed massive relief packages, and the IRS processed and distributed payments worth hundreds of billions of dollars. For many families, those checks were the difference between food on the table and empty cupboards. So when people see an article suggesting another round of checks, they remember that this has happened before. They think, well, it's possible, it's been done already, so maybe it's happening again. That's exactly why this rumor spread so fast. It isn't entirely implausible. It sits in the sweet spot between unlikely and possible, and that's where misinformation thrives. But the context today is completely different. During the pandemic, the economy was collapsing, unemployment spiked, and emergency action was unavoidable. Today, even though inflation has hurt, even though groceries and rent are higher than ever, the economy is not in the same emergency state. Growth has slowed, yes, but unemployment is not at catastrophic levels. For lawmakers to approve another round of stimulus, especially one this large, there would need to be a trigger, either a major recession, a financial crash, or unemployment numbers spiraling upward. None of that is happening right now, and that's why the chance of a $1,390 stimulus payment being secretly scheduled is virtually zero. Let me also address the role of the IRS, because a lot of people are pointing to that. Some of the viral posts even claim the IRS confirmed this payment. That is simply false. The IRS does not create policy. It does not decide who gets stimulus checks, or how much, or when. Its job is to implement tax laws and distribute payments once Congress and the President have signed them into law. Without a bill, without a law, the IRS has nothing to confirm. So when articles suggest the IRS verified these checks, they are misleading you. At most, some reporter might have asked the IRS for comment, and the IRS probably responded with something along the lines of, "We have no such program." Twisting that into IRS confirms payment is the exact opposite of the truth. Now, let's compare this false rumor with the one real proposal that has been introduced recently. Just a few weeks ago, Senator Josh Hawley proposed something called the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025. That plan calls for a $600 payment to workers, framed as a rebate but functionally similar to a stimulus check. It was designed to offset some of the financial pain caused by tariffs and rising costs. That is an actual piece of legislation that has been introduced in Congress. It hasn't passed, but it exists. And notice the difference, $600, not $1,390. And targeted to workers, not broadly to all low-income Americans. That's a far cry from what these viral headlines are promising. If you take nothing else from this, remember this: in Washington, nothing happens quietly when it comes to stimulus. If there were a real plan for $1,390 checks, you wouldn't only hear about it from sketchy websites or suspicious Facebook posts. You would see it debated on the floor of Congress, you would see press conferences, you would see the president mentioning it, you would see mainstream media covering it. Real stimulus doesn't sneak in through the back door, it's loudly debated, criticized, and celebrated, all in public. The very fact that you're only seeing this number in questionable articles is the biggest clue that it isn't real. Now, I know some people watching are still thinking, but what if they surprise us? What if it really is coming and they're just not publicizing it yet? I get that. Hope is hard to let go of. But ask yourself, why would lawmakers ever hide something that could win them political points? Stimulus checks are popular. They generate goodwill. Politicians love to talk about them when they exist. The idea that they would secretly plan a $1,390 payment and then spring it on the public at the last minute makes no sense at all. It would go against every political instinct. That alone should tell you this rumor doesn't hold water. So where does this leave us? Does it mean there will never be another stimulus? No, not at all. Stimulus payments are tools that governments use when the economy demands it. If unemployment suddenly jumped, if a recession hit hard, if consumer spending collapsed, then yes, the conversation about checks would start again immediately. History shows us that. Relief checks have appeared before in response to crises, and they could appear again. But as of now, nothing has been approved, nothing has been signed, and certainly nothing matching this oddly precise $1,390 figure is on the books. And that brings me to the most important part: what happens when people believe these rumors? When someone is convinced a payment is on the way, they might make financial decisions based on it. They might delay paying a bill, thinking relief is coming. They might spend money they don't really have, expecting to be made whole soon. When the payment doesn't arrive, they end up worse off than before. That is the real danger of these fake headlines. They don't just mislead, they cause real harm in people's lives. So the responsible thing to do is to be honest. Honest even when the news is disappointing. Honest even when it means saying, that check isn't coming. Because in the long run, people are better served by truth than by false hope. And I know from years of watching Congress that if and when a real stimulus comes, we'll all know about it. It will be public, it will be debated, and it will be clear. You won't have to dig through viral posts to figure it out. Think about the broader context too. Inflation has eaten into everyone's budgets, the cost of living feels heavier every month, and in that environment, almost any promise of relief becomes attractive. That's why these rumors will keep coming. There will always be another article, another headline, another viral post promising that help is on the way. The numbers will change. One week it's $600, the next it's $1,390, another time it will be $2,000. The details shift, but the pattern is the same. And unless you see it debated and passed by lawmakers, it remains nothing but noise. It is also worth remembering that relief can take many forms, not just direct checks. Tax credits, expanded benefits, rebates, subsidies, these are all tools Washington has used in the past. Sometimes the relief comes through smaller, less dramatic programs, but still makes a difference. So if you're hoping for help, keep an eye not just on stimulus rumors, but on actual legislation that's being introduced. That's where the real story is. To wrap this up, Let me be crystal clear, no, the IRS has not confirmed $1,390 checks for low-income Americans by the end of summer. That headline is false. There is no law, no program, and no payment scheduled. What does exist is a lot of economic uncertainty, a lot of political debate, and at least one real proposal for a $600 rebate from Senator Hawley. That's the truth, as unexciting as it may sound compared to the viral rumor. And while that truth may not give you immediate money in your bank account, it does give you something more valuable in the long run: clarity. Because when you know what's real and what's not, you can make decisions based on facts, not on false promises. That is where things stand right now. And as much as I wish I could say otherwise, there is no secret check about to land in your account. Stay informed, stay cautious with the headlines you believe, and remember that when real relief comes, you won't have to chase it down, it will be unmistakable.